Discover the Women in Tech Trailblazers podcast, hosted by Tiffany, Benitez, and Jordan Franklin. Here, the complexities of being a woman in the tech industry are unraveled through discussions on key issues, personal growth, and how to succeed despite systematic challenges. It's a source of empowerment and inspiration for all women at all stages of their tech careers. We are so excited to be back with you guys today for yet another episode. I know that we spend a lot of time talking about amazing things to help us, in our lives as women. Also, allies, thanks for being part of the journey, because I know that this is really helpful actually for regardless of what your gender is. But we talk about a lot of really cool things that help each and every one of us. And we do try to take a focus on how do we navigate through some of these things in our lives to really help advance our careers. And we have a guest here today that I am super excited to introduce to you that is going to help us really talk about a method that she uses called Brag and how that can help us advance your career. So I am really excited to have her here today. So without further ado, I would love to introduce you to Lisa Stryker. She is a certified coach, trainer, and speaker specializing in personal and leadership development. As the owner of Stryker Coaching and Communications, she helps professionals overcome self-doubt, enhance their leadership presence, and achieve their goals through one-on-one coaching and group training. With 25 years of experience in communications and leadership, Lisa draws on her background as a media spokesperson, communications director, and crisis communication lead to guide her clients to lead with confidence, authenticity, our favorite word, and purpose. She is certified by the Life Coach School, the John Maxwell Team, DISC, and DDI. Lisa, what an incredible bio and background of experience. We are so excited to have you here today.
Thank you so much for having me. It has been quite a journey.
Welcome. Like Tiffany said, we're really excited to have you on. And we always like to start off our podcast with setting the stage and understanding what your thoughts are on what authenticity means to you as a woman. And like she mentioned in your bio, that's a huge thing for you. So what does authenticity mean to you?
It's such an interesting question. And why is it so hard to define, right? To me, the way I think about it and the way I like to help my clients define it is to really understand who you are at your core, not based on the way you feel in the moment. So if you really understand what are your values, what are your priorities, what's your vision for yourself, who do you want to be, and you are so clear on that, that will allow you to be truly authentic in any situation. I think where people sometimes create problems for themselves and the way that they come across as leaders is that they believe that they should go on their feelings of the moment. And sometimes our feelings are driven by trash thoughts, not the way we truly want to be and the way we truly want to show up. So for me, authenticity is giving yourself the gift of time to really understand who you are and setting a vision for who you want to be and acting from that.
I love that. I think that emotions tend to drive us a lot of the time. And I just paused a little because I think it's a reality for us. And I think that some of that is inherent, right? Especially maybe for us as women. But the why it's important to really understand that and hone into that is because you get a choice, right? Just because it comes to you doesn't mean that you have to act on it. So kind of being intentional about realizing this is a temporary emotion. Let me not make a permanent or semi-permanent reaction that I can't take back based on this temporary emotion is huge. So I love that you called that back or called that out to us.
Exactly.
I really love your journey that we read about in your bio and kind of what you've done professionally in your career. Talk to us a little bit about what inspired you to kind of take in the path that you've taken in your career and just provide us some insights on really what that's been like for you.
Well, it has been a rocky road, let me tell you. When I first started out in my youth, which was a long, long time ago, I thought I wanted to be a teacher. I kind of defaulted to that. And I went on that journey, got my degree, never really became a teacher, and realized in hindsight that I love to teach, but teaching children was not what I was meant to do. And one thing led to another. I stayed home with my kids. That was really important to me. So I really dug into developing my career in earnest in my 30s, which felt late to me. I know that's a judgment, but that's how I felt. I was entering full-time work at a time when women in their 30s were already leaders, and here I was just trying to find my ground. And I was brought into a company, a small boutique agency, because I was a writer and they were doing PR and marketing. And I had interviewed them for a story. They called me, they said, "Hey, we're looking for a writer. Do you want to come in?" And that was my foray into full-time work, which led to me being pulled into a major corporation and a power company, which was, it's been around for a long time, kind of old school, very male dominated. And I, being kind of new to full-time work, did not know what I was heading into. And I led a very high visibility team, which was a golden opportunity that I basically I'm not going to say I completely botched it, but I wanted to be a leader so badly. I just had no idea about what it takes to transition from being a really great doer to a really effective and impactful leader. And with the best of intentions, I kind of felt my way through and was very confused and very frustrated about why I wasn't being more successful. And eventually I was laid off from that job. We won't say why or how, whatever, we'll call it a gift. It was redirection. But I felt like the rug had been pulled out from under me, and it really gave me a reason to sit and reflect on how I got there. And in that reflection, I did a variety of things to support myself, including finding coaching to help me figure out, like, what am I missing here? I've been successful all my life. I've been such a great student. I've been given increased responsibility over and over again. Why did I not master this quickly? What went wrong? And it took me some time to figure it out. But once I did, and I started firing in all cylinders, I thought, oh my gosh, this is happening to a lot of people. I could see it around me, other people not making that transition into leadership. And so I kind of reverse engineered what I'd done for myself. I got into new leadership roles. I was much more confident and effective. And I decided I need to make sure that I can tell as many people as possible. The teacher in me came back out. And now I went full time in coaching and training 3 years ago so that I can help other people make that transition and not flounder around as long as I did.
Well, I think one of the things that you said was that you went into a very traditional environment for the time and for now, right? Like a traditional environment. What were some of those, call it gender bias or hurdles, that you had to jump through within that? Because I think we all go that path, right? Like, we're like, oh, we want to be in, I say we all, I've always been at a small business, but I had the same thing. It was a bros club at my previously, right? And I think it's good for girls and women alike to understand what that looks like, and that it's not, you don't have to go the traditional route, right? But I also think it's really good for men to understand this is what they're entering into, and it's really scary, right? It doesn't matter what age you are, any transition into a new organization is scary because you could flop. Right. But what were those hurdles that you encountered, that you overcame to get to the point that you are at today?
Well, I can't blame completely my circumstance. I think some of it was my own naivete going into a big corporation like that. But I think one of the things that I realized that I think would be helpful for people to understand is just because someone else disagrees with you doesn't mean you're wrong. I would have a new approach, or I was in social media and marketing and PR, and I was always coming up with new ideas or new ways to do things, and people were not comfortable with that, and they wouldn't want to really entertain that or hear me out. And I got discouraged very quickly, thinking, oh my gosh, I must not know what I'm doing. I must be wrong here. And if there's any message I would want to send is, maybe this isn't the time for that idea. Maybe you're not going to get leadership support, but don't give up so easily. Don't think, oh, I'm wrong just because they disagree with you. That was one of the things I came up against in my career that I allowed to discourage me, where I wouldn't do that anymore. I would persevere. I would find a new way to go around and make the idea come to life. And at the very least, I wouldn't make it mean that I was wrong. In fact, I was being innovative and enthusiastic and trying to move the needle.
I love that. Okay, so I know I mentioned at the beginning of the episode that you have this incredible brag methodology, I guess is what I would like to call it. But I really want to know more about that. So can you talk to us about what that actually is and how you came up with it?
Well, brag, I think that we, especially as women, but it's not just women, I have coached lots of men and I have 4 brothers. I know, I have a husband. I know what gets in our heads. I hear all the time over and over again when I ask, why are you not advocating for yourself? Why are you not owning your success, owning your achievements, being more visible? And I hear over and over, I don't want to brag. Oh, I don't want to brag. I don't want to brag. And bragging has gotten such a bad name. As soon as you hear that word, you think the boastful, loud person who's taking over the conversation, talking about themselves all the time. And it doesn't have to be that way. So I thought, how can we own the word brag? And I came up with boldly recognize achievement and growth. What if you do want to brag? What if you do want to boldly recognize your achievement, my achievement, your growth, my growth, and really step into that and not let it shut us down? Because you don't have to be that person that, gets on everyone's nerves. And you can still be visible and advocate for yourself.
I love to brag, but I try not to be boastful, and I try to brag on everyone else as they do it, because I think you just hit the nail on the head, is that your work is not recognized unless you speak to it. We are a world of social media. We are a world of consuming other people's thoughts on someone's work. And if you're not speaking about how someone did X, Y, and Z and they did it so great, or speaking about how you did X, Y, and Z so someone else can go influence your brag, right? Then nobody knows. Then you're just sitting and doing it for yourself, quite frankly, and nobody's going to see what you've produced. So I love that.
Also think that is because you mentioned that it has such a negative connotation right now, and it probably has for ever. It's one of those things that we're going to have to be intentional about unlearning some things so we can relearn what you're saying. We've always thought that bragging is terrible and it has this negative connotation, and we're actually going to have to unlearn that to relearn the way that you're sharing this with us in a way that we can use it to advocate for ourselves. So I love that. Just you're going to have to unlearn to relearn what it is you're talking about here today, Lisa.
Yeah, and I think digging into that, Tiffany, too, is how would you suggest that we go about that unlearning or advocating for ourselves or others with your method?
Let's take a moment to thank our sponsors, Women in Technology of Northwest Arkansas and Gumption at my-gumption.com for their support. Their contributions are critical in bringing these meaningful conversations to you. Stick around for more engaging discussions right after this break.
Yeah, it's a great question because people do bristle at it. And the first thing I always suggest is something that people don't do enough of, and that is really getting familiar with what you bring to the table. We're working. We never pause long enough to really evaluate what we're doing and show some self-respect and kind of conjure up that pride in the work we're doing, and taking the time to connect it to the actual impact. What's the value it's bringing? You did this, but what's the value? How does it tie to the objectives? How does it tie to the company vision? So give yourself the time to get really clear on that. Clarity creates confidence. And then you'll have more confidence talking about what you're doing. I saw a term that I love called stealth promotion. Instead of self-promotion, stealth promotion. And there are ways that you can kind of seed your story in without beating your chest. And, this is where it goes back to authenticity. You can still be authentic and share your work. You can create a presentation where you're sharing best practices and make sure you include your own, right? To put together an email about something your team achieved for your boss or someone influential, and let them forward it on. Or if someone sends you a compliment, forward it to your boss. Hey, FYI, I was so pleased to see they're happy with this project. Look for ways to do it that feel more comfortable to you, that it doesn't feel arrogant. And it's important to know the difference between arrogance and confidence. This is something I don't think we talk enough about. Arrogance is this feeling like you're better than other people. That's like very distasteful, and it's not authentic to a lot of the people I work with. That's not what this is about. This is, I'm just as good as everyone else. I love myself and my work, and I'm proud of it. And people are so much more comfortable promoting other people. What if you feel the same way about yourself?
I think we also have to, like, you said we're really good at promoting other people. And that's what I see a lot. Like, women especially, like, we will go to the ground fighting for someone else. Like, we will sell them all day long. But when it comes to ourselves, it's kind of like, and then when you actually find a woman that walks fully in her confidence and owns the room, I think you're also just going to have to be okay being uncomfortable that other people may not like that. And as long as you have like a good heart and no agendas behind what you're doing, you're going to have to just be okay with not being everyone's cup of tea. Doesn't make them bad, doesn't make you bad. It just, for whatever reason, it's just not, it doesn't jive well. But that doesn't mean that you change yourself. It doesn't mean that you water yourself down so you're palatable to other people, I think is the best way that I can say it. But I want to know, like, over your career and maybe even your life, have you had really impactful mentors or sponsors? What did that kind of look like for you? Because, like, I'm mid-40s and I've been in a couple of conversations and on a couple panels this week where they're like, hey, did you have really influential women early in your life? And I had to say no, like, other than my mother. I mean, like, in my career, right, they're just, number one, aren't a lot of women in those upper level leadership positions, right? Like, you of all people, Lisa, this is kind of probably what you focus on a lot, but there's not a lot of them. And then they have all of these things on their plate. So, like, trying to find time to, like, mentor as well is a lot. So I didn't have women early on, and I've had some we talk about this a lot too. I've had some incredible male mentors, still do, and that's great. But I just want to know, like, what your thoughts and perspective are on mentorship and sponsorship, kind of how that's played out well or in your favor as in your journey.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to touch on one thing really quickly that you said about not diluting yourself. That's part of authenticity too. If you value self-respect and you value advocating for yourself, stand firm in that, because you may be reflecting to someone else and making them uncomfortable because they're looking at you and thinking, I wish I could be more like her. So I just had to kind of cap that off because I thought that was so brilliant. No, I didn't either. I'm sad to say a lot of the influences I had were not, I wouldn't consider necessarily positive, and I just never had the benefit of having someone really kind of take me under their wing. I don't know why, whatever, this just wasn't my journey, but something I've learned over time, we have I think there's a really great narrative out there about mentorship, and I'm all about it. But what I think we need to be focusing more on is visibility and giving each other opportunities to be more visible. I pulled a quote actually, because I was doing some research for my BRAG program, and there's so much research out there. The Harvard Business Journal, they had a quote, and they said, in order to advance women, companies should focus less on mentorship programs and more on putting women in stretch assignments that build both skills and organizational visibility. So what I think we need to focus on is, for ourselves, looking for those visibility, assignments and projects that give us greater visibility. Something I work on with my clients is, like, you can't be heads down in your work all the time. You've got to be out there building relationships, looking for opportunities for people to know who you are and what you're doing, and doing your work in a way that people can see it as much as possible, and then giving each other those opportunities. So as a leader, think mentorship, but also think visibility. Give people those opportunities to get in front of influencers and become more influential themselves. We've got to be in the game to change the game, ladies. And in order to do that, we need to be courageous enough to be visible.
I love that. We've got to be in the game to change the game. But I also think another nugget of gold that you just said was that you have to put yourself into stretch positions. Don't move a position because you know that you can complete all the tasks in the job order or in the explanation of the job order, right? Or in the interview process, you're like, yep, I'm already doing all this. I can do it. That's not growing you personally. That's not growing your career. That's doing nothing for you. That's a lateral movement, might be more money, better title, whatever, but it's not changing your status quo. And I think that is huge for women to hear. You don't have to be 100% to take that next job, right? You could be 50%, but know and bet on yourself that you can get the other 50. And
That's so good,
that's how you're going
Jordan.
to grow. Like
Yes.
it's one of my pet peeves. I'll get on that soapbox with you any day because I've gone through it. I've gone through it with lots of other women and helping them get into the positions that they need to be in, but they notoriously sell themselves short. And you can't do that or else you won't grow. There's no way to grow if you're just going status quo.
Something that's so important to remember is your past does not define your future. People say all the time, well, I've never done that before. Okay, so what, right? Are you done growing forever? I think you're right, though. Women are much more apt to do that and not leave a growth gap. But a growth gap is exactly what challenges you and gives you that opportunity to move into a new place. So oh my gosh, I love everything that you're saying.
Well, and I also think that we have to have that conversation with the hiring managers too, right? Like sometimes you have to realize that she or he, whoever you're interviewing, has the capability of filling in the gap that they don't have. You're not going to find exactly everything you want in a human being, but if you find the right cultural fit and they're the right person for your team, then they can fill in the growth. They can fill in the expertise and skills that they need. And you're actually going to get a better quality candidate or better quality person. But the hiring manager has to understand that they got to take the leap too. I mean, that's a whole conversation. But
it's important. It's important. So if you're in a position to hire, if you're listening right now and you're in a position to hire, hear us. I love what you said. You're going to get a higher quality candidate because you want someone who wants a challenge, who wants to grow and learn. You don't want someone who's just trying to maintain the status quo and stay in their safety zone.
Right. Exactly. Okay. You also mentioned mentorship. So we're going to circle back around to that. Have you had mentors along the way? Do you mentor currently? We always love to ask everyone, what is their relationship with mentorship? As you've heard, me and Tiffany both have great mentors. I know you've mentioned that you do as well. So what does that look like for you and how do you go about mentorship?
Well, I think mentorship is so important because it gives you a model to follow and it gives you that guidance for someone who's been where you want to go. And I have not had a whole lot of that in my life, but I'm lucky enough to have it now. And it's such an inspiration to me. I think what we need is to show each other what's possible. And a mentor can open your mind to what's possible. Sometimes we get stuck in this place of lack of imagination, I guess I'll call it. We only imagine what could go wrong, or we only see what we've already done. So mentors allow you to see what's possible, but they also open doors for you. We very hard workers, what I call doers, sometimes don't emphasize relationships enough. And having a mentor, they can introduce you to the people who might give you your next opportunity, might give you greater visibility. So I think it's our job to do that for one another and to seek out relationships that could lead to mentorship. I think mentorship programs are great, but I personally have had more success or seen more success for my clients as well when organic relationships evolve into mentorship. So I always advocate for people to just set up a coffee with someone you admire or someone who's doing what you want to be doing someday and see if you click. It could just happen. A casual encounter becomes a friendship, becomes a mentorship. And those, I think, bear the most fruit, in my opinion, or my experience.
I think there's something to be said too for peer-to-peer like groups. So for smaller businesses and startups, you might have a mentor, but you also might have a peer group that could be completely different industries, but you're all kind of going through the same thing. It's like you can all commiserate with each other. I had a meeting with one yesterday and it was like food for my soul. But Tiffany, we've never really talked about that on here. But after yesterday, I was like, oh, I'm sure we have people that listen that are in startups and small businesses, and that's really helpful too.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you set up a coffee. And so I actually speak at a lot of different things around mentorship because I'm super passionate about it. And I think it's a buzzword that a lot of people think that they understand, but maybe not so much. And I think that it's still finding its way through whatever the journey it is and how people use it. But I say that you need to be able to connect with a person beyond just the title, right? And I think especially in corporations, we go after women with certain titles because of course, like you're wanting to like make it to a certain level. And so what better way than to spend time with someone that's there? But I always say to go, before you ever even talk about mentorship, go set up a 30-minute like informal lunch, coffee or something, and go spend time with that person because it is important. They don't have to look like you, think like you. They actually shouldn't, right? Like that's like the best mentor, but you do need to be able, like there needs to be something that they emulate more than their title that draws you in. And so just go do that. And then once you've done that and you're like, okay, I feel like a good click with this person, then go back and think about, remember, we haven't even asked them about mentoring yet. Then go back and think about what are your goals? Because like there's nothing that drives me more crazy than someone asking me to mentor them, but they don't know what they want. Okay, well, like let's be real. None of us have a lot of time sitting on our hands, and I'm absolutely going to invest in you, but you have to know what you're going to invest in yourself. Like what do you need help with? And the other thing is like, when you then say, okay, I'm really interested in you possibly mentoring me, here are what my goals are. Don't be upset if they say no, because if they're not a good fit, like if they're not strong at what you're asking to be met, then you're just going to end up in a weird place anyways. I've had a few leaders that I've ended up in weird places with because I wasn't getting anything out of it. And then you like bring on an uncomfortable conversation of like, how do I get out of this? And so just really like challenging you to think about investing in yourself and making sure that you know what you want from this person and that they're a good match. And you know, sometimes it's no due to capacity, but I always then, they usually offer, I can't, but maybe this person could based on seeing your goals. And if they don't be afraid to ask them, hey, do you know someone that would be really amazing? So I just think that that's really important to own. As a mentee, you need to own those mentorship relationships. You need to own your career, your growth, and like find people that emulate what it is that you're after beyond just a title. So Lisa, we are coming up on the end of the show. This is my least favorite part of every episode because I feel like we could just sit here and chat all day. But there is one final question that's actually kind of two-pronged. And so I'd like to know, number one, if you could leave our listeners with one piece of advice, what would that be? And then I also want to know, as a woman leader, what is the legacy that you hope to leave?
For advice, I love flipping compare and despair on its head. There's so much of it out there these days. If you see someone and you find yourself comparing yourself to them, ask yourself two questions. Do you really want what they have? And why don't you just allow them to inspire you? So if they do have something you want, let them inspire you. They're showing you what's possible for you too. And as far as my legacy, I want to help more women get in the game and claim their influence. Too many are sitting on the sidelines, and we need to give more people help them empower themselves to have more influence. The people who are thoughtful, people-focused, innovative. There's so many great ideas out there, and they're just being held too close because we're waiting to be picked. I love what you said about mentorship. Take ownership. Take ownership of yourself and your career.
I love it. Thank you so much for being with us today. And beyond just being with us today, I want to authentically say from the bottom of my heart, thank you for investing in women. I mean, I know you coach more than just women, but the way that you invest in people is more than just a job. It's more than just a program. And that is seen from someone that doesn't even interact with you all the time. That is seen in your brand. It's seen in how you communicate with others. It's seen in how you show up in every place that you show up. So thank you for being that. Thank you for letting other women see that. You said something key of on the comparison thing. I think, again, there's some inherent things for us as women where it's an automatic competition, jealousy, petty thing. And I think we really need to start rising up as women and realize that we are better together. And when we stop competing and being jealous and lock arms, like the more powerful we are and the more we can accomplish. And that's really hard for some women to do, but it is what it is. So thank you for emulating that. Thank you for being here today, for taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us and our listeners. Just super grateful. So thank you. And to our listeners,
thank you for having me.
Yeah, to our listeners, thank you as usual for tuning in. You guys are incredible, following us on this journey. If there's things that you want to hear more about that you haven't yet heard about, please reach out to us and let us know on our socials. And Jordan?
Subscribe, follow, listen, share, all the things.
Thank you, guys. You will see Lisa's socials pop across the end of the episode. Please go out and follow her. Look at her programs. Like, I'm actually going to reach out to you, Lisa. I want to know more about the Bragg program. I have just briefly heard about it as we talked to you, but I have more interest in that. So I'll be reaching out. So thank you guys so much, and talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Well, that's a wrap. Another episode of Women in Tech, Trailblazers podcast. Thanks for tuning in and sharing this time with us. If you liked what you heard, please share this episode with your friends in tech. And don't forget to subscribe to our podcast. Your support helps us keep bringing in inspiring guests and uncovering topics that matter to you. Until next time, keep pushing boundaries and making your mark in the tech world. Goodbye for now.